Collier-Wise.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Holland.
Here.
Humphrey.
Here.
Mines.
Here.
Price.
Here.
Sorensen.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Mayor Powell.
Here. Would everyone please stand for the pledge? Thank you. Item 3 are minutes for June 18th special session and June 18th regular session.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes as printed. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Adoption of the agenda. We have one change in the agenda. We're going to table item 7D. Table item 7D. With that adjustment, could use approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Visitors to be heard. Addressing the council. Persons addressing the council shall use the microphone at the podium. Please raise your hand to be recognized. Go to the podium and state your name and address. For items that are not on the agenda, members of the public may speak under visitors to be heard on any topic not on the agenda. Remarks are limited to 5 minutes and no decision will be made at this time. For agenda items, public testimony will be taken at the beginning of each agenda item after the subject has been announced by the mayor and explained by staff. Any citizen who wishes may speak one time for 5 minutes on each agenda item. Public testimony then will be closed and the topic will be given to the governing body for possible action. At this point, only City Council members and staff may discuss the current agenda item unless a council member moves to allow another person to speak and there's unanimous consent from the council. Questions from council members, however, may be directed to staff or a member of the public through the presiding officer at any time. Before that, we do have a proclamation recognizing July as Parks and Recreation Month. And Steve, if you would read that, please.
Happy to, Jack. Designation of July as Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas Parks and Recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Vermillion, and whereas Parks and Recreation is vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our community, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of our community and region. And whereas Vermillion's parks and recreation programs build a healthy and active community that aids in the prevention of chronic disease, provides therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally and physically disabled, and also improves the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas our parks and recreation programs increase the community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas the city's parks and natural recreation areas improve our water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the United States House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the City of Vermillion recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, we, the governing body of the City of Vermillion, South Dakota, do hereby proclaim July 2018 as Parks and Recreation Month and encourage all residents to participate in this observance by being outside and enjoying our local parks and recreational centers. Dated at Vermillion, South Dakota, this second day of July 2018.
Thank you, Steve. Jim, will you receive?
Good evening, Council, and thank you for this proclamation. I do appreciate that you guys see the value of parks and recreation in America as a whole, but especially here in the city of Vermillion. The Vermillion Parks and Recreation Department really tries to serve all populations here within the city, and in a diversity of different manners and such. Without the support that you guys have generously given us to build parks and pools and funding for our staffing and such, it couldn't be done. I would like to just take a moment here to recognize the staff that work with me in this. Ryan Badke is our Parks and Recreation Supervisor. Tyler Tregasor is our Parks Technician. Kylie Hansen is one of our Parks Technicians. And Tyler Williamson, who is on active duty right now with the National Guard, but he is also with us. That kind of makes up the core of the group that run this programs and provide the great services that we can provide for the citizens. I'd also like to quickly thank all the other departments here within the city. Never have I been anywhere that the departments work so well together, from light and power to engineering to streets to wastewater. We get them all, and so I do want to say thank you to those groups too. Without their help, we couldn't do what we do. So thank you for recognizing National Parks and Recreation Month.
Thank you, Jim, and please pass that word on to your people.
I will do so.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that has a topic they wish to bring up that is not on the agenda? Anyone in the audience, a topic that's not on the agenda?
Jack, I know it's not much, but if anybody is here to talk about the 4-H.
We
thing.
tabled that.
I know, but it's not on the agenda now, so if they're here and they want
Yeah.
to say something, this would be
Yeah.
a good time to do.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience? Anyone on the council have anything they wish to say at this point? Okay, then we'll move on. We have no public hearings, so we'll turn to item 7, old business. And item 7A is the second reading of ordinance 1382 to amend section 151.22 mobile home standards to create an exception allowing placement of mobile home standards. And John, please.
Thank you. Earlier this year, during a rezoning request, it was brought to the city's attention that it was difficult for residents to move. There were limitations on moving existing non-conforming units within our community. This goes back to an ordinance that was adopted in February of 2007. And this ordinance basically established some mobile home placement standards that were very similar to what we experience here in Clay County, as well as several other first-class cities in the state of South Dakota. In particular, there are two of those standards that seem to be the most difficult for some of our older mobile homes to meet. One was that they had to meet or exceed federal HUD manufactured home construction safety standards as adopted on June 15th of 1976. And then the other part was a gabled roof with a 3/12 pitch would be another standard that they have to meet. Those seem to be the two main ones that were creating some concerns. So the City Council directed staff to look at what some options might be for that. And so before you is Ordinance 1382, which basically does provide that some of our existing mobile homes that may not be able to meet some of those standards would be allowed to be moved if a couple of conditions were met. And namely, those couple of conditions are the home must have been located in Vermillion on or before February 5th of 2007, which was the council action to establish those standards. The home would then need to be inspected by the city's building official to make sure that it is safe for continued occupancy. And then third, there needs to be a determination made that the mobile home is being moved because of a closure of the mobile home's current mobile home park, if you will. It's not an action brought about by the homeowner, but by the court having it changed. This has been through the process. The Planning Commission did review this ordinance at their June 11th meeting, and they recommended approval 8-0. And the City Council, you considered it at your last meeting on June 18th, and also approved it 8-0 that evening. So I'd be happy to answer additional questions, but I think it's been fairly well presented to the council.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this topic at this time? Yes, please.
I might be all over the map on this one.
Do you want to?
I'm at Cottage Grove. Hello, I'm Christy One Feather. My family moved here in 1968. Andy and Gail Peterson are my parents. He ran the upholstery shop downtown. Some of you here may know who they are, some of you may not. Presently, they're in Scotia, where my dad is farming. He's 85. It's where I should be right now. He's now torn his rotator cuff. So I didn't get a letter. I live in California. I come here and I spend the summers here. I'm a preschool teacher. This is my 36th year teaching preschool. I'm in the United States of America, so I don't have retirement benefits or anything like that, but it's what I love to do. I felt really good about being able to own my own home. and retire here. Premier Real Estate gets my check every month. The city gets my taxes every year. And there's only 13 units. There's no reason to me why I fell through the cracks on getting a letter letting me know what was going on. Kelsey did, after I finally got the phone number for Kelsey, make that happen last Friday. I got a hand-delivered letter. But I don't think that's Kelsey's job either. Now I have to figure out, my mobile home is in the 60s and can't be moved, I'm sure of it. It's also surrounded by trees, which is why I picked this spot. I don't really want to watch the trees get cut down. I don't have any place to move my car and camper and my stuff. Though the charity page is seemingly with good intent, I feel somewhat demoralized because I'm self-sufficient. I never ask for help, even though I would qualify. I do it on my own. So to go from doing it on your own to suddenly being a charity case is not sitting well with me, though I appreciate the intent. If this was a natural disaster, they would have been sending grief counselors, etc. But since it's man-made, we don't really have anything except rumors running around, including that we may have to pay for the destruction of our abandoned home, which is wrong. It's just wrong. Mandy from 18 cannot be here tonight. She is not doing well. She asked me to let you know that when Tom Durham had the court south of the Dakota Dome, he paid the residents cash and moved their trailers for them, so there's a precedent for that. The assessed value of our homes is a pittance, really, depending on the assessor hired in any given year, but say $3,000 to $6,000 per unit. Times 13 is not very much money considering what it's going to take to level the place. And I need the assessed value of my home to take a little bit of the sting out of it. None of us can go buy another home for that. None of us. But it would help. And I know the law isn't on our side, but law aside, whether there's a law, not a law, there's the right thing to do. And I'm from Oakland now, and Vermillion. And gentrification doesn't just happen in big cities, it's come right here to roost in Vermillion, South Dakota. And that's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this topic? Yes, please.
I'm Sheena Allen. I live at 807 Cottage Avenue, lot 23. I have 3 kids. I got my trailer. I busted my butt off to get it so they could get out of an apartment and have a place to call home. We didn't have to deal with neighbors up above us and below us. A single mom, and my son has medical problems. I have medical problems. Now we need to move, and my trailer cannot be moved. There's no way that it would be able to withstand a move. How am I supposed to come up with money to move? Because the only place that I'm going to move is back to Iowa around my family. I can't take this anxiety and everything else of all this coming together and just, oh, you own your place, and then it's like, oh, by the way, you guys thought that you guys were going to sell it as a trailer park, not as land. And then it's like, you don't have a home. You got to tell your 3 kids that we don't have a home no more. We got to pack. And I gotta get my kids moved before school starts. That's like the most important thing to me. And I don't have the money to move them before school starts. And the appraisal value of my trailer would be just something to help us get into something else. And then thinking about hearing people say, you're gonna have to pay for them to destroy your trailer because you can't move it. It's too much to handle. And you guys need to realize this. This is our homes. This is like us coming to your homes and being like, oh, we're going to destroy your house. We're going to take your property away. You guys own it. So you thought. But no, there's something else there. We're just going to take it from you. You guys got to think on our house, too. Not all of us asked for this. We didn't know this coming in. That we were going to lose our home. We thought that they were like resurveying it or rezoning it for just to make it a residential area for maybe someone couldn't get a loan to buy it as a trailer park. We didn't realize that they were selling it as land. We thought that someone was going to buy it as a trailer park and keep it as a trailer park. That's what we thought. We had no idea. We're going to leave it at that. I'm sorry, but that's where I'm going to leave it stand with you guys. I just want you to think about somebody coming taking your home from you and you having to pack up your kids and having nothing to stand on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, please.
Excuse me, next one.
I'm sorry?
Excuse me.
Oh, okay. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, we'll turn it to the council for deliberation.
I have a
Yes,
question. Because you got a letter so late, and I'm sorry about that, we all feel for you. I hope you understand that, and that doesn't help. But because you got such late notice, I'm wondering if we could please just reiterate a little bit of what we discussed in the past, the timeline on this kind of thing that will perhaps help us get some
April.
mitigation, some kind of help. I don't know, whether it's talk to the purchaser or whomever, but
Tom, our city manager, can give us a
yes,
review.
thank you,
a
thank
review
you.
of that.
That's what I was hoping.
So I need to be back to teach in August.
Our city manager will review what took place.
So, excuse me, after the first meeting in May, we met with the representatives for the purchaser of the property and with respect to their plans, and we talked about some of the concerns that were brought forward at the May 7th meeting. And that's when kind of two things happened. One is the ordinance that's on the table right now for consideration, which is 1382, which would provide the standards that these existing homes could be moved in the community. So that's the first question that's before the council. The next agenda item, I think the other gentleman wants to speak on, has to do with the rezoning. And that one, in visiting with them, they established that ordinance would become effective April 1st of 2019. So in working with them, they did establish a longer time period to give individuals a chance to make other plans, to look at what other sort of funding or assistance might be out there to help with relocation, that sort of thing.
I need to be back in California in August to teach. I have to get it done before I go back.
Okay.
So it doesn't really help me.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think that's the timeline Mr. Sorensen
Yeah.
was asking about.
Right. And I think also, wasn't it the case that it was a 30-day
My understanding.
renewal
is that
every
the
30 days? I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, I said, my understanding was that it was a renewal every 30 days. Is that accurate? Thank you.
And my understanding of it, a renewal every 30 days was only if you weren't paying the lot rent, not for a sale, and that you would be asked to completely leave. So that was pretty foggy
Do
too.
you have any? Kelsey?
I was just going to say, so this first one we're dealing with here, this is so that we can make sure that the folks that can move will be able to. So I think we should get through that and then move on to the part about the rezoning so the other folks can talk about that as well, because I think that's going to we're going to discuss some of those issues a little bit more. So I would move approval of this that we're talking about right now, so that the folks that are able to move have the opportunity to do so, and make sure that we have those people taken care of. And I know that doesn't do it for everyone, or even close, but at least it's one step for those folks, so I would move approval on that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of ordinance 1382. Further discussion? This is the second reading, so it's a roll call vote. Don, if you'll set the machinery for us, please. Okay, it passes 9-0. Okay, item 7B is second reading of ordinance 1372 to rezone the parking lot. Sorry. Second reading of ordinance 1372 to rezone portions of Parks Addition, City of Vermillion, Clay County, South Dakota, addressed as 807 Cottage Avenue and 23 East Duke Street, from general business zoning to residential R3 zoning. And Jose, please.
Thank you. As you mentioned, this is a petition that the city received to rezone portions of Vermillion here from general business to R3. The property in question would be on the southeast corner of Cottage Avenue and East Duke Street. It's this portion here. It's known as the Cottage Villa Trailer Court or Park. This item was reviewed by the City Planning Commission at their April 23rd meeting. At that meeting, the City Planning Commission voted 5-3, and they recommended that the City Council deny the petition to rezone. However, the Planning Commission did note that the displacement of the residents could still happen even if the property is not rezoned, since the property could be developed in a commercial fashion. So the displacement may still occur sometime in the future. The City Council considered the first reading on May 7th of this year. The item was tabled to give staff time to amend the ordinance dealing with allowing trailer homes built before 1976 to be moved to other trailer courts. That item was just, the second reading was just heard. City Council brought the item again on June 18th of this year. And again, that was the first reading. And that item, the first reading did pass 8-0. The buyer's representative requested that the ordinance, as John mentioned previously, effective date be changed to April 1st of 2019 to allow the current occupants more time to find housing. The City Council is asked to consider Ordinance 1372 of rezoning the area from GB to R3. This being the second reading, our roll call is required.
Okay. Again, this is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this at this time, please come forward.
My name is Alvin Anderson. I live in Cartersville, 807 Cottage number 30. On this rezoning, they keep saying, you know, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this is for the progress of the city. What about the progress of the people? I mean, you know, we aren't animals. We don't, you know, we don't deserve to be kicked out. I really don't even think it's legal to take the property we own and tell us we got to go and we don't get compensated for it. You know, I've been in a couple of places where they've come through and rezoned or whatever, and this is the only place that I've ever heard of that there's no compensation, there's no consideration for the people. Dollars are fine, but it takes people to make them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Yes, please.
Hello again. My name is Ryan Eichelberg. I live at 807 Cottage Ave, Lot 2. I originally wasn't going to I was not planning on coming today, originally, because I thought it was a foregone conclusion that this was going to be passed. Until I heard this rumor that has been mentioned before, that if I can't move my trailer, and I'm really sure, I'm really hoping I can, I need it to be inspected to be able to know that if I can move it or not. If I can't that I'll be billed for the bulldozer. And that infuriates me. That is criminal. That is, it makes me cringe to think that the people with money are going to be billing the people that are displaced for the destruction of our own home and the forced abandonment of our own home. Oh man, it riles me up like nothing else. So I'm standing here in even more opposition to this today. We keep hearing what I consider to be flat out lies about how this is being built for young professionals that aren't students, that Vermillion's growing. Walmart's cutting their hours, Hibbett's closed, Maurice's closed. No businesses want to come here. That's why they're selling it as apartment buildings, because no businesses want to come here because it's not growing. I've lived here almost my entire life. It's not growing. So the idea that they're going to be able to fill this with sixplexes, if two people drive in each one of those apartments, that's 72 cars compared to our 15, and I know there's been our neighbors who've stood here before in opposition to all of the potential traffic this would bring. So I'm so sick and tired of talking about this and dealing with this, the anxiety that I have every single day because of this. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this? Yes, please.
Yeah, my name is Jamie Kuntz. I live at 807 Cottage Avenue, Lot 26, and I want to bring up a couple of things that were discussed once before. I believe that what we call our home was referred to as blighted. I think that Premier is not doing their job at helping us take care of our properties. Right now, there are weeds as tall as my Suburban on the property right now, and I'm afraid to let my children go out and play on this land. And I've seen the guy go through with lawnmowers. I've seen weed whackers on his trailer, but he doesn't do anything about it. So I have a feeling that Premier is just kind of letting things fall to the wayside so that the property looks even worse than it did before. And I also like to bring up that I don't like the rumors that I have to hear about this meeting. I couldn't find any notices about this meeting whatsoever. And to hear that it's just even a discussion whether you're going to be compensated or penalized if you have to leave your trailer, I think we should all be. I think the person that wants to buy the property should help us move our trailers. I don't think that we should have to pay to move our homes out of our own pockets. I think if that person wants this property that bad, then he should have enough to be able to help the few people to move their trailers if he wants it that bad. And again, being told that, oh, Vermillion is growing, I'd like for those people to show me where Vermillion is growing. I've lived here for 7 years. Hibbett Sports closed, the Dollar Tree closed, even the locally owned dollar store that was on Cherry Street closed. And I see all these duplexes being built, the apartment buildings down below the hill were built. None of them are full. The duplexes off of Cherry Street, they were mostly empty all year round. And I just don't understand why the taxpayers of this town are just kind of being pushed to the wayside so they can build more apartment buildings that are gonna flood and pipes are gonna burst and then freeze, just like Coyote Village. They're not being built properly. They're not being built to code, even though people like to say they are, but they're not. I just like for all of this to stop, because ever since these meetings have started, I haven't slept. I'm super stressed out. My kids are coming to me and asking me if we're gonna have to move our trailer out of Vermillion and if they're gonna have to go to a different school where they don't know anybody. They all have friends here. I would love it if I could keep my children going to these schools and not have to worry about starting all over again. I think it's just cruel. that this is all happening to us because we're taxpayers. And I think it's a little weird that the people that want to buy this land say, oh, we'll give them until April. Well, that's when my first round of taxes are due in April, so it just kind of makes me think that they're just trying to do this as like a write-off. I mean, if they have enough money to build that many apartment buildings, then why can't they help the smaller people that are working their butts off every single day to make a living here? I just don't understand it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this topic at this time? Yes, please.
Janie Badkey, 722 Valley View Drive. Just wanted to mention a couple of things. I did personally send out letters to every single person. I guess I'm not sure why some weren't delivered, and I apologize for that, but I personally took them to the post office. The other thing that I wanted to kind of just discuss is no decision has been made by either the seller or the purchaser as far as what they plan to do with any abandoned mobile homes. So whatever that rumor is, it's, at this point, it's not true. So the other thing, I guess, is as far as, the mowing, it is taken care of in the areas that they can get to. There's a lot of stuff outside of some of these mobile homes and in between that it's very difficult to get to. I mean, you could spend an entire day there taking care of that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you have something else to say?
About the mowing and stuff.
I'm sorry, but I've been doing my own yard work there for quite a while and doing weed whacking and mowing my own yard with the push mower and getting my fence line and everything else. All that, I have no problems with it. It takes little to no time to do all that. I mean, even the garden bed, like the little rocks and around the decks and stuff, takes no time. They don't get off their mower. They don't do anything like that. I mean, they just like all over, and they spit the stuff towards the trailers and towards her older car, and it's like where they tore out other trailers. I mean, they don't even go there. And then like I have a shed there, and they don't go behind there or nothing. There's nothing. There could be stuff in the yard. There could not. The yard could be cleared out. There's weeds that just grow. I take care of my own, and
Okay,
because they
thank
don't
you.
take care of nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think everyone's had their opportunity to speak, and so I think it's time to turn it to the council for deliberation. I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you again for your comments and for being here. I heard a lot of this stuff said earlier around the community, and I don't deal with rumors, but I think there's a real important point that I hope everybody understands. Right now, this is zoned general business. At the time that happened, residential was allowed, and then something changed to make it residential is no longer allowed. Either way, the trailers are going to have to be moved. Is that correct, John?
If it were to remain business zoning like it currently is, and a business wanted to be constructed there, that could happen today, other than getting a building permit, et cetera. So that could, they're non-conforming use by the zoning that's there today.
Okay. Would the non-conforming use stay there for a while until any rezoning happened then? Because it's grandfathered in, correct?
Right.
What we're saying. And, I remember hearing the word blighted early on, too, in this discussion, and whether that's a correct term or not, how did it become labeled that way? And what's to ensure that whatever moves in will not eventually become the same way? I don't know. I disagree with the memo that says that this is compatible simply because there is an R3 zone directly north of this, when all the rest of it is surrounded by general business. So it seems compatible to leave it the way it is. It seems that we need to find someone who is really geared up to find businesses for places that keep moving. What are we doing to keep business and attract business? And if we take this off the business roster, will it ever become business surrounded by those other businesses? Draw the line at Duke Street for the residential. In the interest of giving this another 6 months, perhaps, to figure all this out, and maybe do some remodeling of our ordinances on residential, I would move to deny second reading approval of this.
Seeing no second, Kelsey, did you have a comment?
So to get back to kind of what we were discussing, the fact that this is currently a non-conforming use, that it is commercial and or general business and could be sold and used for general business at any point. What I've tried to communicate to those of you that I've talked to is really that if I thought that there was something that we could do to keep you in your homes and keep you safe there, I would support it. I don't think there's anything we can do. And the best that we can do for you is try to find a way to make this as easy as possible, but I totally understand that this is traumatic and it's horrible, and I feel so terrible for what you're going through, and I wish that there was something that we could do. And I want you to know that in supporting the rezoning, has nothing to do with trying to get you out of your homes. Again, if I thought that keeping it this way could keep you in your homes, I would support it. But they are moving forward with turning this property into something other than your trailer park, and something's going to happen, and the best thing that we can do is try and figure out a way through. So please contact me, and I will do my best to see what we can do. And I can't make any promises, but I can promise you that I'll try.
Thank you. Anyone else? Steve?
And unfortunately Jim McCullough isn't here, but maybe others of you learned it in the law can enlighten me, but is it possible to put in an amendment that makes the change of, I should say, an amendment to this, that if the change were made from business to R3, that any development would require compensation be made to any displaced residents?
As I recall, Jim's comment about that was, no, you can't impose that on a buyer. That's my understanding. John, do you have any?
I think you're kind of blending two questions. One is a rezoning, which is an action the city can take. The business relationship between the tenant, mobile homeowner, and the property owner is a separate entity. And so the city, as I understood Mr. McCullough, we can't impose a rezoning contingent upon that. Any sort of transaction between two private parties. He could say it much more eloquently than I can.
Okay.
I kind of feared that was the case, but I suppose if a business moved in, we wouldn't have any control over what
That's right.
the compensation that a business would make for people. I too am rather distressed about, changing the zoning to allow a residential building to be built, because that's more likely to happen than a business being built. And I do think that the city has tried to make some efforts to, gone farther than I've ever seen the city go to try and make that transition easier. So I'm still thinking about what I'm going to do.
Brian?
As you guys know, I live right next to your trailer park, and I feel so horrible, so heartbroken for everyone involved, whether it's the buyer, whether it's the seller, whether it's the residents. One thing that really gets me, and that I've really said from the get-go, with the new park that was just put in, with the new updated park, the way that those cars fly up and down Cottage Avenue from the highway, it scares me. Someone's gonna get smoked. Someone's gonna get hurt bad. And I know that there's a four-way stop there on Cottage and Duke, but there's not one on Cottage and Rice and Alumni. I don't know if that's possible. I know that there's been 2 traffic studies done already about that. But if that would slow traffic down, I might be more in favor of this. But right now, I'm really on the fence because I can totally see both sides. And upon looking at other past memos and talking to the quarters contractor just this afternoon, the quarters has 196 units that's by the eye clinic that's going in, 496 beds. And the Heights, the one by the arena and the dome, has 74 units and 236 beds. So total, that's 270 new apartments and 732 beds going in. That's over 700 cars that's going to be added to this particular neighborhood. I don't know what to do because already it's a bad situation, and this is potentially adding 50 more cars, let's say. That's going to make it be 750, 800 cars that live in that particular neighborhood. Someone's going to get hurt. So right now, I'm totally on the fence, and we will kind of see what happens.
Parker.
Well, kind of just, I guess, say some stuff, like Tom Sorensen said and Kelsey said, unfortunately, even if it stays general business, there's still the chance of you losing your homes, which I do apologize, and I know I feel bad. I know it's a tough situation for most of you, but like I said, there's not much we can do, even if they sell it as general business. So as hard as it is for me to say this with you here, I would approve rezoning the ordinance, or rezoning the area.
Okay.
To R3.
I think we're confusing some issues that the council has some authority to do with some issues that we don't. And the fact that whether or not we rezone it, the people that own it or will buy it can do what they want with it. And so I think we're confusing the issue. It's not whether or not it would stay as it is, because the buyer would not have to keep it as it is. And so I think we're mixing items here. And so I think at this point, I'm going to turn it to the council for deliberation. Parker made a motion. Okay. Is there a second? I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second. Question?
Thank you again. And yes, it is clear, no matter what, the trailers will have to be moved. I will reiterate, this is surrounded by general business. We need to figure out a way to attract businesses and leave this as general business, because R3 is the densest, as was pointed out, form of residential. And we're talking about a lot more drainage, a lot more sewer, a lot more traffic, et cetera. So I'm voting against this.
Okay, any further discussion from the council? Yes, please. Catherine?
I'd like to echo what Kelsey said about the difficulty that we feel for these displaced residents who love where they live and love the homes that they've committed to. I think it's relevant that, as Steve pointed out, or that came out of Steve's question, that the council has very little control over what the owner of the land and the buyer and the agreements that they make about what to do with that land once it's purchased. I think I'll support this bill, and the reason I will is because by way of making this ordinance effective in April of 2019, we are prolonging it for a period of time for those residents to be able to move. If it were to be purchased by a general business, whenever in the future, they would not be given that kind of time to move. They could just be told, what is it? 30 days.
30 days.
So this is starting a ball rolling that's a terrible ball for the residents. But what the council can do and have control over is prolonging that roll time until April for them to be able to manage that as best they can.
Steve?
John, what if the land were zoned R2? That's restricted to fourplexes?
Essentially, you would only be able to do one fourplex per lot. So the owner would be able to split this however the ordinance may allow it, and you would then just have to be able to put just one fourplex in each of those lots.
How many lots are on?
Well, again, because they can replat it, so if they can show it again. You know, and I don't know what they're planning on doing, but
Right.
if you were to do a fourplex, you might be able to just split it into fours or threes or whatever the case. But essentially, each of these splits, whatever that may be, you would only be allowed to have one fourplex. In a R3, you could have, as long as you have enough area, you could have multiple apartment units in there. So essentially, this could, like they were saying, whether they want to put 3 sixplexes or whatever the case may be,
Right.
they can do as many as they want in a lot, as long as it has enough area. That's how the quarters and the Heights is able to do multiple apartment units in
Right.
there.
I'm glad you, can I continue?
Certainly.
Are you concerned about density of people in that area and traffic if an R3 would be granted?
I guess right now, no. It's something that we have a four-way already at that intersection. I don't see that four-way being changed into a signal. Now, the intersection where Brian lives, that intersection over there, as he mentioned, we have already done a couple studies, so we're looking at it. Once the apartments that are north of him and east of him are done, we're going to look at it again, and we're actually going to do another count. Because at that point, we might have to switch that intersection into a four-way. But this intersection, I don't see an issue with it. I don't see an issue with the one at Duke and Dakota. There's this misconception of having stop signs to control speed. What that actually tends to do, if you have a four-way at every intersection or a stop sign, what actually that happens is that people then speed between the signs.
Right, that's what I do.
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, it's been studied.
Right.
It's a known fact, that's what happens. So you have safety, you might have an increased safety at the intersection, but between the intersection, it's a drag strip. And that's why we actually take putting a four-way or a stop sign very seriously. We're not trying to endanger anyone, but right now, there's no need to put a four-way at that intersection.
We had issues with exits places out near Norbeck and
Yep.
entrance places. Do you anticipate in an R3 situation that would be an issue?
No, I guess with the ordinance that was approved a few weeks ago, that ordinance is essentially for this area here, the area would have to be replatted into one lot. And once that happens, then we would actually be able to dictate how many entrances they have per frontage. And if I remember correctly, this one here essentially would just have 2 access points, one off Duke and one off Cottage. So you're not going to have, 4 entrances per frontage or anything of that sort. So we do try and minimize the amount of access points for the same reason we don't want 17 cars turning right and left at the same time.
And then my final question, with the mayor's indulgence.
Everybody else is on.
And everyone else's. Do you anticipate more water displacement problems in an R3 zoning than an R2 zoning? Would the parking lots be bigger, for example, and
Yeah, I mean, it's a general rule, you are gonna have more impervious area in an R3 than an R2. That's just, you're gonna have, like you said, more parking lot, more apartments, more
Right.
whatever. The ordinance or the criteria that we have and approved by the council, again, tries to minimize the effect that additional drainage is gonna have on the system. The item to take into account as far as this location is that the drainage is, the lay of the land drains north on Cottage and then east on Duke. And then it goes into some inlets at Elm and Duke. Once it gets into those inlets, and it goes east to Dakota on a pipe all the way north to the ditch. So this system is separate than, let's say, the one that's by Brian's property at Duke and Alumni. That system, that's the low spot, and it gets collected there and goes north to the ditch. It always goes to the ditch in this side of Vermillion. That's why we have a lot of localized flooding in a lot of these areas. But the ordinance or the criteria will, depending on what they're planning on building, will mitigate some of that drainage, some of that storm drainage. So hopefully that, it's not going to solve all the problems, obviously, but it's meant to reduce a lot of the effects that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and go ahead.
Has this property been sold yet?
I don't know.
Yet you've seen the plans?
No.
Oh, so this is conjecture?
I haven't seen the plans.
No, okay.
It's just like,
Okay, and you didn't get to sewers, though?
the sanitary sewer?
Yeah, if you have a R3.
The sanitary sewer, we have plenty of capacity on the sanitary sewer as far as the piping. An 8-inch line can carry a lot of sewage.
Okay, and I'll remind the council that we do have control, not after it's purchased, if we change the zoning. Right now, we have control whether or not to change this to the densest form of residential, or let's go out and try to find more businesses.
Go ahead.
I hate to continue this on, but just from a policy standpoint, one of the things, and we know this is not a question, this has been studied over and over again, the biggest thing that is holding Vermillion back from growing is lack of housing and our housing crisis and a lack of affordable housing. And affordable housing is exactly why we have so much trouble finding places for people to live that they can survive in. So the idea that just putting extra businesses in here solves everybody's problems, Tom, I have to completely disagree with.
Affordable
Okay,
goes to salaries, too.
I think that we're going to ask Don to set the machinery for our vote. This is a roll call vote. It's approved, 6 yes, 3 no. Thank you. Item 7C is second reading of ordinance 1374 to rezone portions of Parks Edition, City of Vermillion, Clay County, South Dakota, addressed as 711 Cottage Avenue from general business to R3 residential zoning. And again, Jose, please.
Thank you. As we mentioned, this is for 711 Cottage to rezone that area from general business to R3 residential. This area is directly south from the just finished item. It's located along Cottage, one distance north of Cherry Street, so right across from Kalen's, essentially. This rezone was actually presented to the Planning Commission for their consideration at the April 30th meeting. They recommended approval with the contingency, I guess, or the notion that the council only approve it if the 807 Cottage and the 23 East Duke were also rezoned from general business to R3 in order to avoid spot zoning. The City Council considered this item at their May 7th meeting. At that meeting, the item was tabled due to the tabling of the 807 Cottage 23 East Duke item. The City Council again reconsidered this first reading on June 18th and approved the first reading with an 8-0 vote. The City Council at this point is asked to consider the rezone of 711 Cottage from general business to R3.
Thank you, Jose. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this topic? Seeing none, turn it to council.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, whoops, sorry, second reading. Don, please. What did you want?
I wanted yes for that.
Okay, let's amend this. It should be 9 yes and 0 no, and the motion passes. Thank you. We have no new business, and so at this point, it's my pleasure to recognize a councilperson are retiring, and I'd like to present Holly Mines for her service to Vermillion as alderman for the Northeast Ward from July 2014 to July 2018 in recognition and appreciation from the city of Vermillion, South Dakota. And Parker, in recognition and appreciation for your service to Vermillion as alderman for the Northwest Ward from July 2014 to July 2018. At this point, Steve?
I move we adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion is second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We are adjourned. And now we have installation of newly elected people. So,
Mayor, you coming first?
okay,
Before council members?
We do the pledge again.
we will. And we'll
This one.
You don't get double pay, though. No. Do you have what I say, or do
I administer the oath of office to the new mayor. Would you repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Jack Hall,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of mayor
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the mayor
of the city of Vermillion, South Dakota,
of the city of Vermillion, South Dakota,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Now I'd like to ask the new aldermen, Julia Helwig, Rich Holland, Catherine Price, and Howard Wilson to come forward, and we'll administer the oath of office.
Step away for a minute.
Illusions of grandeur.
I'll administer the oath of office and ask you to please repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Catherine Price,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of alderman
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of alderman
of the city of Vermillion, South Dakota,
of the city of Vermillion, South Dakota,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Yes, yes. It was a tough battle. Okay, as soon as our new council persons are seated. Mike, would you call the roll, please?
Collier Wise.
Here.
Helwig.
Here.
Holland. Here. Humphrey. Here. Price.
Here.
Sorensen.
Here.
Ward. Here. Wilson. Here. Mayor Powell.
Here. Do we need to do the pledge again, or it's not on the agenda? Okay. So then we'll move on to adoption of the agenda.
So move. Second.
Motion a second to adopt the agenda as printed. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is election of council officers. We have two. First is the council president, and the floor is open for nominations. Certainly.
I
Nominate the current council president, Kelsey Collier-Wise. She's been a great representative of the council and worked hard on policies and procedures and labor fighting. Labor fighting, I love that with you. And she's been a wonderful advocate for the city of Vermillion and the citizens of the city. So I nominate Kelsey Collier-Wise for the position of president.
Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there further nomination? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next is vice president. Kelsey?
I would like to nominate Rich Holland to continue as vice president, and I don't have a speech put together. I'm sorry, Rich.
Look, you tell. No. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Further nominations? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Congratulations to continue our officers. Next, we have appointment of administrative officers, and both, well, we'll do one at a time. We've asked Mike to continue on as finance officer, and he has agreed to do so. So I would appreciate a motion to continue Mike as our finance officer. Motion to second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Mike. City Attorney, Jim is not here, but he has agreed to serve us, continue serving us.
I nominate Jim McCullough.
A motion to second to continue Jim McCullough as our legal counsel. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Other appointments, city council committees and other committee assignments. What I've done is for people that were on a committee, I've continued them on that committee, and for new people, I have put them on the committees that the outgoing council persons were on. So that would mean Labor and Finance, Kelsey Collier-Wise, Chair, Helwig, Holland, and Price. For Policies and Procedures, Holland is Chair, Collier-Wise, Sorensen, Ward. Surplus Property Appraisal, Price Chair, Helwig, Humphrey, Sorensen. Utilities, Ward Chair, Wilson, Humphrey, Powell. Joint Powers, Howard Wilson. Library Board, Kelsey Collier-Wise. So those are the ongoing committees. And what I'd like to do is so that each of you has a map so you'll know where you sit. Okay.
Motion to tree board, the council appointment is proposed as Rich Holland, who currently
Okay,
serves.
Rich Holland is on that now. Okay. And let's see, Mike, the official newspaper.
You want a motion and a second for the committee?
Oh, committee assignments, yes, please.
Second.
Motion to second to have the committee assignments as announced. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Now, daily, our official newspaper, Mike.
State statute requires the city to designate an official newspaper. The Vermillion Plain Talk has previously been designated the official newspaper, and has recommended a motion to designate the Vermillion Plain Talk as the official newspaper for publishing the legal notices.
Okay. Motion is second to continue the Plain Talk as our official newspaper. All in favor signify by saying, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Is this the only paper that actually qualifies locally?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Depositories, Mike?
State statute requires the city council to designate official depositories for city funds. City council has previously designated Core Trust Bank, First Bank and Trust, First Dakota National Bank, Bank of the West, South Dakota Public Funds Investment Trust, Wells Fargo, and the First National Bank in Sioux Falls as official depositories. I would recommend the reappointment of these financial institutions as the official depository of city funds.
So moved.
A motion is second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Consolidated Board, again, Mike, please.
The county, city, and school have adopted a resolution that provides for the Consolidated Board of Equalization. While the three entities have adopted this resolution a number of years ago, the Director of Equalization has asked that the city reaffirm its intent to continue with the Consolidated Board. If we didn't have the Consolidated Board, the city, along with one school board member, would need to meet and hear appeals as a local board, and then they would be referred on to the county for their meetings. So consolidating kind of condenses down into one meeting, which a lot of times takes two. So I would recommend the City Council continue the Consolidated Board of Equalization by passing a motion indicating their desire to continue the Consolidated Board.
Motion is second to consider, or to continue Consolidated Board. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Determination of rules of order. John, please.
Annually, or when you have these organizational meetings, you identify which version of Robert's Rules of Order you'd like to utilize. For several years, we used the 9th edition. They're kind of the mauve, purplish colored books that are around the table here. We'd recommend that you continue with that unless you'd like to switch to a different version. And also, if that's appropriate, to reaffirm the Rules and Procedures manual that was last updated in 2008, which were all provided to you at orientation, but we can certainly get another copy to you if you need another one.
Motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion is second to continue on with, is it 9th edition? Rule.
They changed the color.
Rules of order. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Under visitors to be heard, is there anyone in the audience that has any item on that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, any council persons have anything that they wish to bring up at this time? Okay. We have no public hearings and there is no old business. Under new business, a resolution authorizing the purchase of an air compressor. Jose, please.
Thank you. The budget sessions back in August of last year, City Council reviewed the 2018 Equipment Replacement Fund. At that time, we noted that there's a 2001 air compressor for the Light and Power Department that was scheduled for replacement this year. Administration would like to take advantage of an NJPA contract or bid. The total bid for a 2018 Solaire 185 DPQ KUB T4F CWP air compressor meeting our requirements is that one. Requirements is $22,850. Stan Houston Equipment from Sioux City is willing to sell the air compressor at the previous mentioned price. The 2018 Equipment Replacement Fund includes a budget of roughly $19,000 for this purchase. This is approximately $3,500 lower than the purchase price. As mentioned previously, the existing air compressor will be traded in as part of the sale. The trading value of the air compressor is $6,000, which would then lower the price of the purchase to $16,850, which would then be within the budget. Administration recommends approving the resolution to purchase the 2018 Solaire air compressor from Stan Houston Equipment for a price of $22,850 and trading in the 2001 Solaire air compressor as part of the sale for $6,000, bringing the total purchase price to $16,850.
Which compressor was it?
One of those two.
Council? Motion and second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next is bid openings and fuel quotes. Mike, please.
Fuel quotes are on the screen. They're the first quotes from Stern Oil on 4,350 gallons of unleaded gasoline with 10% ethanol, $2.48.33 per gallon. Unleaded gasoline regular, $2.69 per gallon. Number 2 diesel fuel dyed, $2.44.83 per gallon. Number 2 diesel fuel clear, $2.75.48. Second quote was from Brunick Service on the unleaded with 10% ethanol, $2.52. On the unleaded regular, $2.73. Number 2 diesel fuel dyed, $2.48. Number 2 diesel fuel clear, $2.76. Stern Oil would be low on all 4 bid items.
Thank you. Council? Motion and second to take the low bids. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Let's see. We have then the surplus fire department MSA air packs. Chief, please.
At the May 21st council meeting, 5 MSA air packs were declared surplus with a value of $8,000, not to be sold less than $7,200, which is 90% of the appraised value. Since that time, bid opening was the 26th of June. We did not have any bids. We did have several departments inquire about them, but said they would get back to us after they had received, if they received a denial letter from the Assistance to Firefighters grant this year. So we're asking that the council continue advertising these at 90% of the appraised value, $7,200, and sell to the first department that comes forward wanting these air packs.
Thank you, Chief. Council?
Does this simply mean we need to expand our notices to people who are still using MSA?
Well, I think part of it is too is that a lot of places have already upgraded. They've upgraded to the high pressure. These are low pressure tanks. That's part of where we're not getting some of the buy.
Even if they're MSA and not Scott.
Correct. Yeah. And so there's a lot of places such as Pennington County received a regional grant last year and purchased new air packs for their entire county. So there's a lot of places in South Dakota that have upgraded, and so we'll expand now outside of South Dakota and look in Iowa and Minnesota and Nebraska for departments that may need these.
Thank you, appreciate that. I move approval of the fire department continuing to advertise the sale of these air packs.
Motion and second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is the city manager's report. John, please.
And just a reminder, city offices are closed this Wednesday for the July 4th holiday. The recycling pickup that would ordinarily be on Wednesday, July 4th will be on Monday, July 9th. So if you have a Wednesday pickup, you'll get 2 opportunities next week. Just a reminder that a couple years ago, the code was changed, and it is permissible to discharge some fireworks in the community on July 4th from 9 a.m. to midnight. There's information available on the city's website with respect to which fireworks you can discharge in the city, or else certainly the fire department can help you with that. Starting next week on Thursday, July 12th, will be the first Thursdays on the Platts event. Just a reminder then that Main Street from Market Street west through the length of Radigan Platts, and then Market Street as it abuts Radigan Platts, will be closed for Thursdays on the Platts from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then it goes every Thursday basically through the end of August. We are monitoring both the mosquito counts and the weather, and we currently right now anticipate fogging for mosquitoes on Thursday, July 5th or Friday, July 6th. That's going to depend a little bit on the weather and how the counts progress, but it looks like we will meet that threshold to be able to fog later this week. We do plan to again fog the entire community at one evening. So if you are interested or would like to be on the do not spray list as we pass your property, please contact City Hall, and we're happy to do that. We already had a couple of addresses that came up today. We do have one vacancy on our Planning Commission. Interested individuals are asked to complete an expression of interest form and submit that to the city no later than noon on July 11th, and then we anticipate that the City Council would make an appointment at your next meeting on July 16th. And then Jose, you have that information? Storm drainage?
I don't have one for everybody, but
Okay.
some information.
Well, we'll be getting a handout to you. With the recent heavy rains we've had, Jose's kind of put together some information with respect to storm drainage capabilities in the community and some of the events that we've had and how those measure with respect to the 100-year, 500-year storm, just different things like that, and how the monitoring system for that works. So we thought it might be helpful information at this point in time in the community, so we'll get that out to you the next day or so. And then finally, we traditionally meet in the off week in August, so between your first and third meetings, between the first Monday and the third Monday in August to work on the budget for the next fiscal year. So we'll be sending out an email later this week to look at dates that might work for you during the week of August 13th.
Okay. Any questions for our city manager? Tom?
Yeah, John, do you know when is that when we'll first see the proposed budget, or will we see it before we start meeting?
You would receive it on Monday, August 6th. Typically, we give it to you at that first meeting in August, then we meet the second week, so you'd have a week to go through it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions for our city manager? Seeing none, then invoices payable. Anything that you want Mike to field?
I would move approval of the first item.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the first item. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the remaining. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Consensus agenda. Item A, set a public hearing date of July 16th for a special daily malt beverage and wine license for the Clay County Agricultural Fair Association on or about August 9, 10, and 11, 2018 in the West Arena and on portion of High Street on August 10, 2018. Item B, set a public hearing date of July 16th for a special daily malt beverage and wine license for Ribs, Rods, Rock and Roll on or about September 7 and 8, 2018 on Main Street between Washington and Court Streets, Rodigan Platz, Market Street from Main to Bloomington Street, Austin Street from Main to Kidder, Kidder Street from Austin Court Street, Austin to Court Street, Court Street from Main to half block south, public parking lot at Market and Kidder, private parking lot at Market and Kidder, and Prospect from Main Street to National Street, and to include any other streets closed for the event. Item C, set a public hearing date of July 16th for a special permit to exceed permissible sound levels by no more than 50% for Ribs, Rods, Rock and Roll, Inc. on or about September 7 and 8 from 5 p.m. to midnight on Main Street between High and Prospect Streets. A motion and a second to approve the consensus agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Steve?
Second.
Motion is second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We're adjourned. Thank you.